Welcome to another episode of the Wild Strength Podcast. This is going to be my first and probably my only solo episode ever. I'm a yapper and I can yap a lot, and so that's why I avoid doing these things. But also, I would rather prefer, I did not start a podcast to emphasize me and the things that I do because I am, as I like to say, average or mediocre at best. I just really I started a podcast to highlight really cool people that I meet, really cool people that I know. So this will probably be my only solo episode, but I kind of wanted to do it for a couple of reasons. One, as a 1 year podcast anniversary thing, which actually I started it in October, so I'm a little late on the 1 year anniversary. But two, I did a Q&A kind of thing on my Instagram story, and I got a handful of questions. I'm not answering all of them. I'm just going to answer some of them because, like I said, I just don't want to sit here and yap for forever. But it's not weird to me because I talk to myself a lot, and just maybe an interesting way for the listeners that I do have regularly to get to know me if you don't already know me. But anyways, I think in Wild Strength fashion, I have to start this with a walk-up song, and I always get asked what my walk-up song would be. This is probably going to be a surprise to most people. And I'm not even going to give the name or the artist, but it is in Spanish, majority of it. And I just think I'm someone who I really like the beat of a song before I ever listen to the words. And this is one that just freaking gets me going. It is currently Monday morning at 8 a.m. And who knows what time you're listening to this at, but if I need to get my day going and it's a Monday and it's early, this is probably what I'm going to start my day with. So without further ado, here is my personal walk-up song. All right, so there's my little jam session for the morning, and I am fired up for a solo podcast. Anyways, so like I said, I had a Q&A thing on my Instagram story, and I just kind of said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I'm not going to answer all of them. I am going to answer some of them, and there are two specifically that I'll probably take up most of the time talking about on here. But I'm going to start with the first two that I got because they take up probably not a lot of time because I don't have big answers for them. And for some of the questions, I'll say who asked them, and for some of them, I'll kind of leave anonymous. But my buddy Reed, this was definitely in an attempt to probably to make me look dumb or sound dumb because I'm not I will go and shoot firearms, rifles, pistols, whatever, every once in a blue moon. I'm not opposed to firearms, and I've actually talked about wanting to get into long range shooting for a while. But Lord knows I don't need another expensive hobby, at least in the moment. Or I don't have time for another expensive hobby. It's not even a money thing. But he asked 6.5 PRC or 7 PRC. I don't know, buddy. I would ask Reed that question, but in an attempt to answer it, like I said, I am not afraid. I will not make myself look dumb trying to sound like I know an answer. I am 100% the type to refer out to the experts or ask people who know what they're doing before I will try to make myself look dumb. But what I will say of 6.5 PRC versus a 7 PRC is I'm currently shooting a 270 Winchester, which is not related to either of those. And honestly, the only reason I'm shooting that is my dad's deer rifle that he used, which then my brother had, and now I have. And I don't shoot enough, so I haven't gone out and bought my own yet. But what I do know with the 6.5 and 7 PRC debate, I have heard that the 6.5 PRC maybe isn't great. I do ask questions and what people shoot, why do they shoot it, and then I'll ask other people questions. Maybe the 6.5 PRC isn't great. I don't know. I've heard the 7 PRC is good for long range. That's all I know. But if someone wants to sit down and have the firearms conversation with me and tell me what you think is the best rifle for hunting and then the best rifle for long range shooting and why, feel free to send me a message and let me know, and I will love to have that conversation with you. And maybe one day I'll find the time to get into more long-range shooting. I actually did have a couple rifle tags this year, which is I always get out and just make sure I'm not rusty and make sure I can hit the target. Because I'm someone who I don't want to hunt just September archery season and then not hunt the rest of the year. So getting the rifle tags just gives me more opportunities to get out there. The next question from Shane asked, why is Tyler Jensen so short and gay? And I debated whether or not I even wanted to put this question on here. There is a bromance that goes on in a group chat and in my direct messages on Instagram between Tyler and Shane. And it's just them making fun of each other. And I just really sit back and watch 99% of the time. And that's all I'm going to say on that. I'm actually not going to answer the question, but I do admire you guys' bromance, and I love watching it fold out in my message. So I got 2 questions related to the hunting season. One was, how did my hunting season go this year? And then another one was, what hunts do I have planned in 2025? I figure this answer might take up quite a bit of the time. So I do want to spend the most time on this one. So I'll start with, how did my season go this year, or I guess in 2024? I am going to start back with like not just my hunting season, but like 3D archery season from beginning of April until probably the second weekend in November. I had 2 free weekends. So I have been, whether I'm slinging arrows at 3D targets or indoor or just traveling to see people or traveling for vacation or hunting or whatever, your girl has been going everywhere. So I think this year in 2025, I'm going to commit to slowing down a little bit, and not even to say that I'm going to do less. I just want to be more intentional with the things that I am doing, because not that I was even close to burnout, I'm not, but I would like to have time for like life instead of just going all the time. And if you're unaware, I am in school still. I'm working on my PhD, and I didn't touch it for a solid 5 or 6 months because I just didn't have time to. So I do need to slow down and prioritize that a little bit this year. But anyways, I did a lot of 3D archery shoots throughout the summer. Going into August, which I'll start with my first hunt of 2024, which was an antelope archery hunt. It was an over-the-counter tag, and I was hunting public land. I've never hunted antelope before, speed goats, whatever you want to call them. But I'm addicted. Like, I'm probably going to try to find a way to hunt antelope every year for the rest of my life, hopefully. And I did not feel that tag. And I also want to start with, and I guess maybe I should have started this episode with, the Wild Drink podcast is being picked up by the Okayest Hunter podcast network, which I'm super excited about. And I am the okayest okay hunter. Like, I think sometimes like I'll get messages that, I don't know, maybe people think that I am really good at hunting or I know what I'm doing, and I don't. I mean, I'm figuring it out, and I do a lot of solo hunting, not by choice, but because I'm not going to kill anything sitting on the couch, and sometimes there's not always someone to go with you. But I say all that to say I have a lot of tags that went unfilled this year, which is a very realistic expectation for me. This is only my 4th year hunting and my 2nd year hunting out west in Colorado, and my 1st year hunting antelope. But oh my God, it was the most fun I've ever had hunting, I think. You can hunt those critters all day. They're diurnal, I believe. So they're mostly awake all day and they sleep at night, just like us humans are. They live in like such wide open prairie land. So stalking them is very challenging, which I do appreciate a good challenge. And just getting close to them is even more challenging. Like, I had so many times where I was at 150 yards and that was the closest that I could get without anything being in front of me. After that, it was just hoping that they would come closer to me. My buddy Josh Walker came out the first day of that hunt. Shout out to Josh. If you're not following High Country Jaywalk on Instagram, I highly recommend. He's such a solid dude, solid friend. I love that guy to death. He came out to just really show me the ropes of antelope hunting. Like I said, I'd never hunted them before. He was kind of teaching me about them, showing me a couple areas. And then I stayed out there for like 4 or 5 days after that by myself. Like I said, that hunt and every hunt this year was such a learning opportunity and a learning experience for me. I got multiple stalks in a day. I just couldn't end up closing the distance. I think the closest I ended up getting was about 75 yards. To be completely honest, I was not comfortable taking that shot because that one was a frontal shot on a very tiny antelope. Like, even an antelope buck, they're not big critters. And it was also like 20-mile-an-hour winds. And so for me personally, like, I couldn't have made an ethical shot, I don't think. So I just did not take that shot. But nonetheless, antelope are so much fun, and I'm definitely going to try to get back out for those in this year in 2025. The next tag I had after that I got out for was a rifle bear tag, but that rifle bear tag was during archery season, and that one has such an interesting story. So I originally only, and that was a draw. I drew that tag. I only even put in for that tag because me and a buddy of mine we were going to get out for that tag together. He was very familiar with the area. He knew some land that we could either hunt on or hunt around. And it was basically like, we both get this tag within the first week, we fill our tag, and then we spend the rest of September trying to fill our elk tags. And I was like, hell yeah, brother, count me in. And just ended up turning, he couldn't go, and so I had to hunt that tag on my own. I had never been to that area. It was like 5.5 hours from where I live. I'd never even visited there before, much less like scouted or hunted there before, which was my first mistake, and I know that. But nonetheless, I had paid for a non-resident tag, so I was not going to not hunt that tag. And I guess maybe I could. I think at the time I found out he was bailing, I was too late to turn it back in. But anyway, so I got out there, and like this just goes to show the value of like community and networking. And like I've been back, so I lived in Colorado before. I've been back in Colorado a year and a half now, and just like the community that I've built here is unmatched. Like once I found out my buddy couldn't go, and was kind of backing out of it, I reached out to everyone I know that hunts that lives in Colorado. Just like, hey, I know spot sharing isn't a thing. You don't have to send me pins, but I've literally never been to this unit before. Do you even know like where I should start? Like, I don't even know what to do, where I should even start. And like multiple people hadn't ever even been out to that unit ever. They didn't know much about it, but even they would connect me with people that maybe they knew. And I did end up getting a little bit of intel for just places to look. Like by no means were they places that people were like, yeah, I've killed bears here, I know bears are here. It was mostly just like, hey, this looks like a good area based on e-scouting, or someone said that they've been elk hunting here and they saw bears or whatever. And so I had about 5 days for that tag. Spent the first 2 days. I didn't find shit. I wasn't finding sign. I wasn't finding scat. I was looking for berries that bears like to feed on. I wasn't finding anything. And I was getting really frustrated with myself, but also was just flustered that like there was a plan in place, and then that plan just kind of got blown up whenever my friend had to back out, which is, I get it, life happens. Like I said, nonetheless, I was determined to just like figure it out. I ended up at the end of day two moving to a totally different part of that unit. And like right before last light, I had kind of pulled up on a campsite of people. And I didn't plan to camp there. Like, I'm not, if I see a bunch of people camping there, I don't want to ruin their campsite. I don't want to ruin your spot. I don't want to take anything over that you're already doing. But I just pulled in and I was like, hey, I've got a rifle bear tag. So, like, I don't know if you guys are hunting deer, elk, or whatever out here, but I'm just hunting a bear. And I'm just curious if you've even seen sign. Like, is this even a good place to stop, or do I need to just keep moving? And oh my God, those were the nicest people I've ever met. And that just goes to show again that like the hunting community has been awesome to me. There's been some really bad eggs in the basket too. So I'm not going to say there aren't bad people. But I've just met so many incredible people. And I'm honestly a firm believer that if you're a good human, you're going to meet more good humans. And if you're a shitty human, you're going to meet more shitty humans. And that's a fact. And that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, I pull up to this camp and I'm like, I'm just curious if you guys are even seeing like bear sign. And you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I just thought that I would ask. And of course, the first person I roll up to is like, yeah, I just shot one today, actually. I was like, oh my God, okay, thank you. Like, I'm going to go find a camp spot, and like, hopefully I'm not in your guys' way. And they come to find out they had been hunting that area for 20 plus years. They camp in the same spot, like big family environment. There was husbands, wives, kids, daughters, dad. Like, it was just so cool to be around these people. And like I said, yeah, they had been hunting there for 20 plus years. And they found out I was hunting by myself. They found out I just didn't really know the unit, and they were so willing to help me. They showed me like their secret spots that like I'm sworn to secrecy and not allowed to show anyone, which I think is incredible because I don't know if I'd be showing a stranger my secret spots. And they were just showing me around, and they'd invite me to their breakfast when they were cooking breakfast, and dinner when they were cooking dinner. And if they were having a beer, I could have a beer with them. Like, they let me camp right next to them. And so that was really fucking cool. Like, I still was out like hunting by myself, but I could come back to camp and like be with a community. And like I stated earlier, I don't really like solo hunting. Yes, I mostly solo hunt, but I do it because people bail, or like my schedule is different and not everyone can get out when I have the time to get out. I'm going to spend as much time as I possibly can, and not everyone's really able to do that. And so, like, I just got to a point where I stopped asking people if they wanted to go with me and I just started going. But I think solo hunting is a really good opportunity to not only learn yourself, but to learn more about yourself personally, not just about hunting as well. Um, Anyways, I did not feel my bear tag. Unfortunately, I was very deep in bear sign. And like the last morning, I was sitting a pond, and the last night that I was there, I was sitting the same pond, and bears came in. But I just happened to be, I wasn't taking consideration that like thermals changing and what would as sun was rising and setting. And so I just happened to get winded both times that the bear came in before it was visible enough for me to take a shot at. I left that camp on my last day, and no one at that campsite knows this. I was in my car bawling like a little baby because how kind were these people to me? And I just felt like, what did I do to deserve these people being so kind to me? Like they shared their whole camp, their whole hunting trip with me. And I just thought that that was so cool. So I did not feel that tag, but I am so grateful for those people and for them taking me in like they did. After that, I had an archery elk tag, which because I had spent and taken time off for that bear tag, I was not able to really take much time off for that archery elk tag. So I would hunt that one. I've got a spot about an hour from where I currently live that I would hunt it on the evenings after work sometimes. Like that was maybe once or twice a week. And then I would take like Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday mornings for the rest of September to hunt that tag. I did not end up filling that tag either. So we are currently at this point in my hunting season 0 for 3. I didn't end up filling that tag either, which that was another one. Like I solo hunted that the entire time. I never had anyone get out with me the entire time. But I learned so much, and like I don't go into my hunts expecting to fill a tag. I just feel like that's real expectations for me. I still am so new to this. I still am so new to elk hunting. This was my second archery elk hunt ever. Both were on over the counter public land hunts that are heavily hunted. And so for me, every opportunity I get to get out there, every step that I take, every time I find sign, like to me, that's success. So, I sit here and say, like, at this current point that I'm talking about in my season, yeah, I'm 0 for 3 on my Colorado tags, but like I learned so much, and to me, that is success, which is super cool. I did end up, so early October, I went down to Texas. I am still a Texas resident, and I probably need to get that lifetime residency. I went down for whitetail during archery season, and I got a buck and a doe down in Texas with one of my buddies, which I think is super cool. One of the reasons I left Texas was because there's little to no opportunities to hunt public land out there, and the places that you do find are so heavily hunted that it wasn't worth it to me to stay. Whereas I wanted to come out west, where opportunities to hunt public land and just get out whenever I wanted to were more available. But nonetheless, I've gone, like last year and this year, I did go back to Texas, and last year I got nothing but does, and I was totally okay with that. This year I did end up getting a buck again, and I got a doe. I will say, like sitting a blind. Oh, I guess so. My buck was sitting a blind. The buck came in at first light, the very first sit that I had down in Texas that weekend, and I ended up I took a frontal shot on this buck, and I think prior to this shot, I had told myself that I never wanted to take a frontal shot. I think that was maybe just my lack of confidence in myself as an archer. Especially maybe I'd take a frontal shot on an elk because they do have a larger area to shoot as a frontal shot. But on a deer or an antelope, I just didn't think that I ever would. But I drew back on this buck, and it was not a frontal shot originally, but the second I angered and put my pin on him, he turned towards me and my pin was right on his chest. And I was like, all right, well, it's either I let down and maybe I miss an opportunity on this buck, or I just have confidence in my skills and I take this shot. And so I did end up taking a frontal shot. It was a very fatal and clean shot. I got right through the heart, and the buck only walked like 30 yards before he bedded down. I did use Beast broadheads this year. I've had a lot of people ask me about those. They're mechanicals. Please do not come for me saying that I'm not shooting a fast enough arrow to shoot mechanical broadheads, because I've killed quite a few critters with them so far, both small critters and big critters. And I think if you're shooting a semi-fast enough arrow, drawing back 60 pounds, and if you have good shot placement, it doesn't matter. That's my thoughts. People might think differently. That's my thoughts. That's my personal opinion and my setup. So I do recommend the Beast broadheads. I've had a lot of people ask me about those, and so that's why I wanted to do that. I ended up getting a doe the same day, but I got to spot and stalk that doe, so that was fun. There's not a lot of spot and stalk hunting that goes down in Texas, but we were kind of heading back up to where, or we were leaving the blind, and kind of just heading out, and I had seen a doe from far in the distance, and I was like, can I, like, I just want to spot and stalk this one and just see if I can do it. And sure enough, I ended up getting like 20 yards, and was able to put a doe down. So that was super cool. And then what was after that? Oh, so I came back to Colorado. I got out with a buddy of mine. He had a rifle cow tag, which I had never hunted elk with a rifle before. So that was a whole new experience for me. It also was freezing the entire time we were out there. It snowed. I don't think the temperature even went above 32 degrees for the 4 or 5 days that we were out there the second go, which I love that too. Like, I am a big fan of challenging things, pushing yourself, and like sleeping in the cold, being outside in the cold all day, trekking through the snow all day. Like, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. But I do think that we should challenge ourselves and do things that we don't like. And so for me, that was just a big like mental push. We were in elk. We were seeing elk. Unfortunately, the wolves won that battle, and we could not outhunt the wolves. Every time we came up on fresh beds or like fresh tracks or fresh sign or anything, there was a wolf print right next to it. So I guess that's unfortunate. Colorado did release wolves into the state last year, and so we were kind of seeing the effects of that where we were hunting. But I can't change that. Can't complain about it. That's just what was happening where we were hunting, and I when I get to outsmart the wolves and outhunt the wolves, I'll let you guys know. But the wolves won that battle for sure that time around. Let's see. Then I left early November. I went to Missouri to hunt whitetail in Missouri, which was really fun. New state I've never even been to, never hunted. I actually found out earlier in the year that my mom has a friend, like a family friend out there who hunts. And so I got to go out there and ended up shooting a big old doe. Oh my God, the biggest doe I've ever seen in my life. The deer and whitetail deer in the Midwest are definitely way bigger than the whitetail deer in Texas, because I think that doe is bigger than any buck I ever shot in Texas, just like body wise. And someone else that was out there at the same time ended up shooting a buck, and that's the biggest fucking buck I've ever seen in my life. Like, my mind was blown how much neck meat this thing had on it, how big its body was. So that was just a really cool experience. I definitely think I'm going to try to get back out to Missouri for that tag as well. Fast forward about a month or so, I went on my first duck and goose hunt ever, and that was down in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, at that time, like, I'm not even going to sit here and act like I know much about duck or any waterfowl hunting period, because I don't. But I did get to learn some on that hunt and on that trip. I guess maybe a big cold front hadn't come in yet. Birds weren't moving around yet. We did see a lot of geese. They just weren't coming into calls. We saw ducks too. They weren't coming into calls. So what we were seeing, we weren't able to take shots at. I got a duck and a goose, a singular duck and a singular. And I was so freaking happy with that. Like, by no means am I complaining about one duck and one goose. I was saying, like, before I left for that hunt, my only goal was to like see one, and if I get to shoot one, like, that's even better, because I am not comfortable shooting a shotgun. I have not shot a shotgun all of my life. And I've only ever shot a shotgun at a static target. I've never shot one at a moving target. I did go skeet shooting, skeet shooting, whatever you want to call it, right before the weekend before that hunt, just so I could know what it feels like to shoot at a moving target. I was not that great at it, though. I hit like 1 in every 3, so I was batting like a 33%, which I guess maybe isn't bad, but it isn't great either. So it was just cool to get out there and do that. And it's definitely something that I want to learn more about, maybe get a little more involved in, but we'll kind of see how that works and for me and the time that I have and everything else that I have going on. So that was the last hunt of 2024. Actually, no, I did end up I went back home to Texas for Christmas, went back up to Oklahoma, and we were deer hunting, which we had some bucks coming in, but they were young bucks, and didn't end up putting any deer down on that trip. But once again, it's just time spent in the woods with good people, and I do always enjoy that. So I guess that's a wrap on my 2024 hunting season. And then the question was, what hunts do I have planned in 2025? Great question. Actually, next weekend, maybe about the time this is coming out or after this comes out, I'm not sure, I will be going back to Oklahoma for another duck or another waterfowl hunt. I guess my thoughts are like, I had to pay for a non-resident tag, so I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck that I can. But it is going to be significantly colder down there if we end up seeing some ducks, if we end up seeing some geese, and even better if we end up getting to shoot some, it'll be worth it. And once again, like I said, it's just time spent with really good people in my mind. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most. But so to start off 2025, I will be starting with another waterfowl hunt. That'll probably be it until April. I am going to Africa. I'm going to be hunting in South Africa. That's actually a trip that a friend of mine won through Instagram, and they were able to add one person with them, and they had found out about that giveaway through me. So I was like, if you don't take me, I'm going to be so upset with you. So they ended up picking me, and so we're going to go together. It's me and my buddy Chase, and that'll be super fun. We'll be there for 5 days. There are 2 critters that are included in that giveaway, and we're definitely going to add one, if not maybe 2 more. So I am excited for that. At first, I honestly never had a desire to hunt in Africa. I think it's just like, it's an expensive flight to get there. You have to pay per critter that you shoot. And then you have to pay to bring the taxidermy back, which is also very expensive. And you don't get to bring any of the meat with you. Like, I got into hunting to put food on the table to fill my freezer. So when I found out you couldn't bring the meat back, I really was not interested in hunting in Africa whatsoever. But I'm getting to go on this hunt in Africa for like a quarter of what it would actually cost me. Like, I just had to pay for my flight and then anything else that I add. I'm not too upset about it, and it'll probably be like a one and done thing for me. I'd like to stick in the States. There's so many hunts here that I haven't done yet that I would like to do. Tags, or maybe hunts that I have done with tags that I haven't filled yet. Like, I am putting all of my effort into filling my elk tag this year. So yeah, I think that I'm so excited for Africa, but that'll definitely be like a one and done thing for me. I think in May, I'm hoping to go to Hawaii for an axis deer hunt. I actually met someone at a range here in Colorado who was just visiting a friend and got to chatting them up. And he was like, if you ever want to come out to Hawaii and hunt axis deer, like, family has land and property, and I'd love to have you out. So I'm going to take advantage of that and hopefully get out there in May. Then the rest of the summer will spent just be doing. Does that grammatically make sense? The rest of the summer will be spent doing just 3D shoots. Like I said, I'm probably not going to do nearly as many as I did last year. I would just like to have some time to breathe this summer and to actually get out and scout, because that was one thing, like, I did not do much scouting, if any at all, this year, because I was gone every weekend of the summer doing 3D shoots. So I do want to tailor that back a little bit so that I can get out and do some scouting for the season. I'm definitely going to get out for antelope again, so that'll be in August. And then I'm not going to try to hunt bear here in Colorado again. Not in the fall. Hunting bears in the fall here anyways is just not a good bet. I might try to do, I guess, rewind a little bit. I do want to try to hunt spring bear, maybe in Wyoming, but I have nothing set in stone for that yet. It's just something that I would really like to do. I'm going to spend pretty much all of, like, if I don't fill my antelope tag by September, I'm not going to keep hunting that tag, because I would like to dedicate all of September and as much as I can to filling my archery elk tag. And if I don't get that one, I'll go for an over-the-counter cow rifle tag. But I have been telling, like, I came to Colorado to get into elk hunting, and I don't know, I'm up in the air whether or not I want to stay in Colorado long term, but I can't leave this state until I kill an elk. And that's just what I came here to do. I am like one track minded when it comes to that. And I just feel like, yeah, I've gotten out as much as I possibly can for that, but also I don't feel like I've put as much effort in as I possibly could either, because like I said, I haven't really done much scouting. So I really want to hit the ground hard with scouting this year, and just increase my opportunity for filling that archery elk tag. Then we'll see where life takes me after that. Maybe I stay in Colorado, maybe I don't. I don't really know. I'll probably, like I said, Texas is something I try to do every single year. So I definitely probably going to go down to Texas for archery in October. I want to get back out to Missouri again. So I'm going to try to go to Missouri again for that whitetail tag. I do also have some points in South Dakota. I didn't get the Arizona over-the-counter tag this year again. So I might try to get a tag in South Dakota and go out there for mule deer. I have mule deer and whitetail out there. So I think that'd be a really fun tag to hunt. And I don't know, I also get a lot of questions like, oh, like, why do you hunt all these places, blah, blah, blah. And like, for me, I got into hunting to fill the freezer and put food on the table. But I do that by increasing the number of times I get to harvest a critter. So if I only ever hunt elk in September once a year, and that's the only thing I get to shoot, then, like, I guess for one person, yeah, and one singular elk is probably enough to last me a year. But I don't want to just hunt once a year. Like, I want to hunt as often as I possibly can throughout the year. That's why I have a hunt in April, I have a hunt in May, like August, September, October, November. Like I want to get out and hunt as often as I can. And so I'm always finding opportunities to go new places, to hunt new places, to explore new places. But my question to anyone who's listening who is a hunter, what are your favorite, like, where are your favorite states to hunt? Where are your favorite places to hunt? What's your favorite critter to hunt? Let me know. I'm very interested because, yeah, I love learning new things. I love learning about new areas, new animals. And so if you have a favorite spot or favorite place or favorite animal you like to hunt, I'd love to hear about it because I'd like to just, yeah, explore new places as far as that goes. So those were, yeah, I think the two questions that I knew I would spend the most time on. I also got, have you done any of the High Sierra archery events in California? I have not. The only things I've done in California were my buddy's bow disciple shoot, James Visser. He hosted a bow disciple shoot in San Diego. This will be the third year he's doing it. I went to it last year in May, and that's the only shoot I've ever done in California. I'm going to try to get back out for that one this year, but I also might be, if I end up going to Hawaii, it might be at the same time. But I'm going to try to be at the Bow Disciple shoot. And yeah, that's the only one I've ever done in California. Someone asked, what is your favorite state to live or visit? I've only lived in Texas and in Colorado. Texas is not my favorite place in the world. I always say, though, if I could combine like the people in Texas, I'm not really big into politics, but like it does kind of affect the way you live. If I could combine the people and the politics of Texas and like the landscape and hunting of Colorado, I'd be living in the dream place. So if you know of a state that is exactly that, please let me know. And that's probably where I will move and decide to settle down finally. As far as states that I like to visit, oh my God, I'm always going places. I like Utah a lot. I like Arizona a lot. And honestly, anywhere out west where there's mountains. I'm a big mountain girly. I'm not big into like spending time on the beach or the coast or whatever. I did get to spend some time in Washington for the first time ever. One of my best friends from like 6th or 7th grade and her husband live out there, and I went to spend Thanksgiving there, and I was there for about 6 days. Washington is beautiful. So that's another place that I really like to visit, and I imagine I'll go back out there a handful of times in the time that they live there, and especially if they stay there forever, I'll just go visit once a year maybe. So I do like Washington a lot. Oregon's beautiful. I've been to Oregon briefly, or just for like 3 days, but I definitely try to cover as much ground as I could. But I think anywhere where there's forest or mountains or any of that kind of scenery, you can bet that I'm just having the best time ever and I'm living my best life. If it's flat, if there's big cities, I hate big cities. So if it's flat, if there's big cities everywhere, if it's just beaches, like I'm not really fond of that. That's not my jam. Josh Ellis asked, how did you become an archery wizard? That's sweet of you, but I do not consider myself an archery wizard, Josh. I do believe that I ask you way more questions about archery and setting up my rig than I've asked anyone else. And I do appreciate your help always. I do not believe that I am an archery wizard. I'm just trying to I was going to say I'm just trying to solve my problems with archery, which is not the case, although it does help. I don't know. Archery's been so many things for me. It is a place when I go and shoot my bow, whether it's in my yard, it's at the range, it's on a 3D course. Like, it's just a place for me to escape. And what I really like about it, it's like a Zen thing for me. Like, if I want to take a good shot, whether I'm hunting or just shooting at like a 3D target or a paper target, I have to be so like present with my shot process, because if I'm thinking about anything else when I'm shooting, that arrow is not going where I want it to go whatsoever. And so I think that's been really cool. Like, I, for the longest time before I got into archery, was someone whose thoughts were just everywhere. And yeah, just in that moment, like, I have nothing else in my brain except for like my shot process and where is this arrow going. And so I do really like archery for that. I just would not consider myself an archery wizard, but I do appreciate the question. And if you consider me one, I appreciate that as well. And last question I'm going to answer is, will you keep shooting PSE? I'm currently shooting a PSE Carbon Levitate. Funny enough, I won that bow in a giveaway. It was like fully set up when I got it. And so really the only reason I'm shooting it is because it was free 99. It costed me $0 to shoot that bow. I was shooting an Elite before that. I think, and I've told multiple people, if I switch bows, I think I want to go back to an Elite. I did really like mine. I had an Elite. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting which one I had. That's not good. I did end up selling it, and I'm so sad that I sold it. I wish I would have kept it at least as like a backup bow, but it just wasn't like, I'm shooting 60 pounds and my draw length is only 26 inches. So I have a really short draw length. And it just wasn't a speedy bow. So I did pick up a lot of speed and was able to shoot a little bit heavier of an arrow and still maintain some speed with the PSE Carbon Levitate. So I really just, that's the biggest thing I'm looking for in a bow, and just how it feels too. I will say it took me a long time to get used to the draw cycle on that PSE. It feels like ass on my shoulder, and I have a really bad shoulder. So it took me a long time to get used. And if I go a period of time without shooting that bow, like I have to slowly ease into shooting it again because the draw cycle just does not feel good on that bow whatsoever. But I do think it's made me a better archer. I say that because like elites are very forgiving bows, so like I feel like I could maybe be less consistent with my draw process and my shooting process, but still be a fairly consistent shot. Like it was never a perfect shot, but fairly consistent. Whereas with this Carbon Levitate, I really like, you cannot be lazy in your shot process, because if you are, once again, the arrow is not going where you want to go. So I do appreciate that about this bow, is I feel like I can now shoot any bow after shooting this PSE, because it is a very unforgiving bow. And so that's one thing I appreciate about it. The same person asked, have you tried the Mach 33 and how does it compare to what I'm shooting now? I've not tried it, but I have heard that the Mach 33 is very similar to the Carbon Levitate. I've not looked into the specifics or the specs of what's different. So that's something that I would actually have to look up. But I've heard really good things. The people who like PSE really like the Mach 33 or the Mach 34, especially if you like a longer axle to axle bow. I know the Carbon Levitate that I'm shooting is like 32 inches, I believe. So it is the longest bow axle to axle that I have ever shot. And I definitely want to stick with a longer one. Just for stability purposes alone. But yeah, good question. I'm going to keep this PSE for now because I don't hate it, and I've gotten to be really good at it. I'm starting to get into like shooting indoor and target archery, but I'm still using my hunting rig, and I just think it's going to make me an even better shot when it comes to outdoor 3D, and then especially when it comes to hunting. Maybe I'll go down the dark path of getting a target rig, but I'm sticking with the hunting rig for now. But like I said, I think if I switch, I'm going to switch to an elite because I did really like that. And the people with elite people with PSE are great too. I've met some of them and they're amazing people. And the people with elite are also really good people. So we will see. But for now, I'm sticking with the PSE. So I hope that answers your question. Those are all the ones that I wrote down from the questions that I got. Like I said, I'm not answering all of them because on my mind, I didn't want to spend a whole hour sitting here just talking myself, but I am at 41 minutes currently. So if you made it this far just listening to me, you are my superhero. You are a rock star, and I appreciate you. But yeah, I didn't want to talk for too terribly long by myself. Like I said at the start of this episode, my biggest thought in doing this was just celebrate 1 year, a little over a year now of doing the podcast. Really maybe have you guys just get a better insight to like who I am. And like I said, I started this podcast to just highlight people, like really cool people that I know, and to have really cool conversations. And like I said, I do talk to myself all the time, but I don't think I'm that cool of a person. So will not have that many solo episodes. Maybe once a year I do it just as like a yearly recap and like what's next year supposed to look like, because I think that took up the majority of this episode. But yeah, I don't think that I'm going to continue to do these that often. If you did make it this far, I do appreciate you. And definitely send me a message, reach out if you have any questions. As tradition for the Wild Strength podcast, I end all of my episodes asking my guest, what does wild strength mean to you? So I'm going to answer that question myself. You know what's been really cool about these podcasts and these conversations is, before I recorded my first episode ever, like someone had given me advice to figure out like how can you make your episodes uniquely different from a lot of the other ones that are out there, because I wanted to start a podcast for a really long time and I never did because I was like, oh, there's so many podcasts out there. Like, how is mine going to be different? How is mine going to be better? And I finally was just like, fuck it, Winnie. Like, if you're going to keep thinking about it, do it. And a big motto of mine, or and something that I tell people all the time, if you think about it once, and it crosses your mind and you don't do it, but you continue to think about it for a second and a third time, find a way to fucking do it. Because you're going to continue to think about it until you do it. And so that's just how a podcast was for me. Like I had thought about it for a while and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep thinking about why and how and when I should do this until I do it. So I just finally pulled the trigger and I did it. But someone had told me like, just, yeah, how can you make yours uniquely different? So it was, you know, my background is in strength and conditioning and human performance and working with sports. And I've actually spent most of my career working with military. But like this, the conversation comes up with every coach I've ever met. Like, what would your walk up song be? So that was kind of like a homage to just like my background and my career. And I just think that's a fun question to ask people. So I started every episode with like, what would your walk up song be? And then I end all my episodes asking guests, what does wild strength mean to you? And I had no clue where that was going to go. But that has been my favorite part of this podcast. And like the answers that I get from people are amazing. And it's just really interesting to see where people go with that. Like sometimes they take it quite literally, sometimes they take it figuratively, sometimes they do both. So that's been so freaking cool. And that is hands down my favorite part of every podcast that I've done. But what does wild strength mean to me? I think wild strength is just putting yourself out there. Wild strength is doing the damn thing. Wild strength is doing it scared. Wild strength is being uncomfortable. It's doing the things that maybe we don't want to do, but we know that they're going to make us better at the end because of those things. I think wild strength is a lot of mental resilience. Like I said, putting ourselves in positions where we're scared, where we're uncomfortable, but we really lean into those feelings. I think it takes an incredible amount of strength to wake up and not do what's normal for us, wake up and not do what's comfortable for us, because so many people live a life where like they're doing the same thing all the time. They never expand their skills, they never expand their knowledge, and I just don't want to live that kind of life. And I think wild strength also, like quite literally, is like another reason I got into hunting is, you know, I really wanted to get back to like a primal lifestyle of like how we used to live forever ago. So I think it takes wild strength to put ourselves out there. You know, when we're hunting, we are predators and we are searching for prey. And that feels very primal to me. To eat the food that I harvested feels very primal to me. To like, eventually I want to get to a point where I am growing my own produce. And I think that's very primal to me. And I think just that's how humans are meant to live. That's how we started. Technology and society and all of these things have ruined that for us. And that just goes back to like wanting to be uncomfortable. Like, I don't want things to be easy for me. I don't want to live an easy life. That doesn't sound like fun. I think when we live an easy life, we don't learn much about ourselves. We don't learn much about life and humans and people. So really, it's just a way to challenge myself. So I think wild strength is like returning back to our primal roots. And like I said, being uncomfortable, doing things that are hard, and challenging ourselves in life and in the woods and in nature. And so, yeah, I think that to me is what wild strength means. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to me yap for over 45 minutes now. If you made it this far, like I said, you're amazing and I appreciate you so much. I'm really excited to do another year of podcast. I've already got a couple of folks lined up that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And you know what I always do for my guests is like, I'll run into someone at like a 3D shoot or something. And if they're cool people, I'm like, hey, I really want to have a conversation with you. I want to get to know you more. And so I'll have podcasts with those people. So I've met a lot of the people that I've had on my podcast at like 3D shoots or hunting expos or all those kinds of things. Definitely keeping up with every other Friday going into this new year. And I think that's going to be exciting. And as I mentioned at the start of this, I'm really excited to be a part of the OKS Hunter Podcast Network. And I can't wait to see where that takes the podcast. But that is a wrap, folks. And thank you for listening.